Look, I want to start by praising the Sutton Trust for the brilliant work that it does and has done over the years. It has been at the vanguard of the fight for equal opportunity in this country, and in particular Sir Peter Lampall has been leading that fight, and he has shown great leadership of this organisation. I congratulate the Sutton Trust and indeed Pearson for coming together today. We have an important subject to discuss, and we have a good Labour turnout. We've got my colleagues Tristram Hunt, Liam Byrne and Rushnara Ali sitting in the front row, which shows the seriousness with which we take this subject. I'm just going to make a few opening remarks, and then it'd be great to have a discussion and questions. Look, I think the starting point is that our country faces a huge economic challenge, which is how do you create the decent jobs at good wages that are going to power our economy in the future. Related to that, we face a huge challenge of aspiration and optimism, which is that parents are worried that their kids will have a worse life than them. For the first time in a generation, what I call the promise of Britain is in danger of being broken. And we face a huge educational challenge, which is how do we give all of our young people, and not just some of our young people, a decent start in life. And that's really the focus of this conference and the focus of my remarks today. And I want to argue that these challenges are connected, that to meet this economic challenge, to meet this challenge of hope and aspiration, we've got to meet this challenge of giving every young person, not just those who go to university by the conventional academic route, a decent opportunity. Because for a long time, and this has been true of governments of both parties, we've believed that there's only one route to success, or at least that is what we've given the strong impression that we believe. And I suppose I think about it from the point of view of a 14-year-old. It's obvious what the route to success is for that 14-year-old. It's if they're going the academic route, it's GCSEs, it's A-levels, it's on to university. And the last Labour government, working with organisations like the Sutton Trust, did a lot, in my view, to help more of our young people go that academic route. And I'm proud of what we managed to do, both in terms of school education and the expansion of those going to university. But here's the thing that we've known for decades, which is that that conventional academic route doesn't work for everyone. Indeed, it works for about, or it is applied to, or it's available for about 50% of our young people. But the big question for our country, I believe, is what about the other 50% of our young people? And it's about what I call one nation, which is, are we going to be one nation where we all have educational opportunity, or are we going to be two nations where some do and some don't? Think then about a 14-year-old at school who's not necessarily academic, and think about the routes available to them. And the truth is, I think even with this very sophisticated audience, we will be hard pushed to describe what exactly the vocational route was for those young people to a career and to success. And we've got to put that right. You know, there's some basic questions that at the moment can't be answered. What is the gold standard vocational qualification that young people should be doing? What is the career path that they can see in front of them? What do they need to do to get there? And here's the thing which is in a way should give us both hope and should give us a sense of challenge. Other countries do this much, much better than us. Indeed, you're going to be hearing about this later on at the conference, I believe, tomorrow. In Germany, there are proper joined-up qualifications at every level, pathways onto apprenticeships and careers. And look, in my view, we cannot afford to allow people's talents to go undeveloped and their hopes are unfulfilled. And the government I plan to lead in 10 months' time will have a clear focus on addressing these deep, long-standing problems in our educational system. So what does it mean to do that? It means creating that proper route to the best educational qualifications for all of our young people. We're going to introduce a new technical baccalaureate for 16 to 19-year-olds, a gold standard vocational qualification. So the 14-year-old that I'm talking about knows exactly what they are aiming for. We'll make sure everyone does English and maths until age 18. We'll improve the quality of apprenticeships and give employers real control over the money used for training, and this is a long-standing complaint of employers, so that the skills young people learn are the skills that will set them up for a career. And we want to go one step further to, and that's what I want to talk about briefly today. The culmination of this reform agenda for the forgotten 50% who don't go to university is to work with our companies and our universities to develop new technical degrees. This is not currently the priority of our universities because it has never been the priority of government, and we are determined to change that. Our priority for expansion of university places will be technical degrees designed together by some of our best universities and our leading employers, teaching people the skills they really need to prosper in the new economy, working in areas like design, engineering and ICT, and learning not just at university for academic excellence, but also in the workplace for vocational and technical excellence as well. I believe that those young people who've excelled at doing the technical baccalaureate at school or college should be able to take it a step further by doing technical degrees at university. Now, this is a new direction for our country because for the first time, those who have succeeded in vocational education and training will be able to progress further. For the first time, young people will have the chance to earn while they learn at university with a degree that provides a clear route to a high-skilled technical or professional career. For the first time, there will be vocational qualifications of equal standing at school, university and beyond. And if you think about the way this links up, we're going to be saying a technical baccalaureate for our young people, a gold standard to aspire to, decent apprenticeships for them, and then not the old divide between saying you can do an apprenticeship or you can go to university, but for those young people who excel in the apprenticeship that they do, they can also have a university course as part of that apprenticeship, getting a technical degree equivalent to a conventional academic BA. Now, I think that is incredibly important because, unless you have that whole joined-up approach from the technical baccalaureate to the apprenticeship to the potential for going to university, we're never going to deliver on this promise of equal standing and equal status for our young people. And I think that is the coherence of what we are announcing today. I'd say this also. Britain's young people clearly in this country need better than they get right now, and our economy does too. There is an incredibly exciting vision for the future within our grasp, a Britain that succeeds with the next generation working for a new generation of industries. And it succeeds by Britain doing what it's done over the centuries, which is working hard, making, building, inventing and selling products and services. But to do that, we've got to give skills to all our young people and qualifications to all our young people and a proper route to a career for all our young people. By making these reforms, we can do that. We can equip our young people with the skills they need. We can provide parents with a reason to be confident for the future. And it will enable us to create the high-skill, high-wage jobs of the future and compete in a race to the top with the best in the world. Now, let me say this finally in conclusion. I think we've known about this problem for decades. It's not a new problem that has suddenly emerged. This deep problem of educational opportunity. What I think has made it far more challenging is that, and I take a constituency like mine, is that the old jobs that used to guarantee people a living without the skills, without going to university, aren't there anymore. So this is an economic necessity for our country. And it's a necessity in terms of opportunity for our young people. It is the absolute focus and priority for us as we look forward to the next government on how we are going to improve education in this country. And I think by doing this, we can deliver skills, qualifications and careers for 100% of our young people. Thank you very much. Who would like to begin? Yeah.
Arifan, sorry, from the BBC. At the moment, if somebody goes to university, they can go and study computers or engineering or design. So what's the difference?
There's a big difference here because what this provides is a new way of people doing degrees, a new way in a number of ways. First of all, this will be a degree done at university, but also at the workplace. And therefore will be a more applied degree. Secondly, people will be getting a wage while they're doing this degree as part of their apprenticeship, not the conventional way of being funded. And thirdly, and really crucially, these will be courses co-designed by businesses and universities. Because part of the issue here is turning the pure study that people do, which is very important, into something which is more applied, technical and vocational, which is what many companies want. And one of the things that has been heartening about the reaction that we've had is that we've had positive reactions both from universities, from companies saying, this is the kind of thing we need. This is the kind of thing we'd get involved in. So I think it's an incredibly exciting opportunity to bring together our businesses and our universities, inspire our young people to give them equal status qualifications.
Do you think it was a mistake to get rid of the polytechnics?
I don't actually know, because I don't think sort of splitting up universities into saying some universities will do these kind of subjects and other universities will do other kinds of subjects is the right way to go. I want as many universities to come forward and offer these kind of courses and say, yes, this is something which can be done. And I think in a way, part of the challenge we face, and maybe we'll get onto this in our discussion, is there's a cultural issue here. I mean, let's be frank about this. There is a cultural issue for our country. If you think about a country like Germany, it's not just that they have the qualifications and that they are good qualifications of significant standing. There is a culture that says we properly value as a culture and as a society these kind of qualifications, people doing these jobs, people going into apprenticeships, people going to university to do technical qualifications and vocational qualifications, and then going on into manufacturing and other industries. So I think this is why this is a huge challenge. It's partly a challenge of qualifications and for government, and it's partly a challenge of culture as well.
I'm Joe McDevitt, trustee at the Sutton Trust. To understand, you've got 50, just to be simple about it, 50% university, 50% not. What about the 50% you asked 2 years ago? The gold standard is an exciting idea, perhaps 10% of the 50% now having an opportunity. One question, what about the other 40%? And two, does this require an expansion of the universities, or do we repurpose part of the 50% that are at university, the university resource that's available now, does it have to be repurposed up to a certain level, which would...
Good question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me deal with both of those questions. So just to be clear about this, when we say the technical baccalaureate, that is basically about the qualification people get at the age of 18. And look, we want as many of our young people as possible who are not going down the academic route to have that gold standard, to get to that gold standard qualification. Look, then you're right to say what proportion will actually go on to university, to a technical degree at university as well as an apprenticeship. I'm not going to put a sort of number on that. What I would say to your expansion question is this will be our priority for expansion. So in a world of constrained resources, if we're thinking about what's the biggest priority for expansion, it's not about removing people who are currently doing academic degrees or removing the numbers, kind of cutting down on the numbers currently doing academic degrees. It's as you look to expansion, I think this is a big priority for expansion. In fact, this will be our top priority for expansion, because I think, frankly, it's essential for our country. It is essential for our young people who need to be given that sense of aspiration about what they can reach. And also, look, just in pure earning power terms, a lot of the evidence is that if we can get young people these qualifications and give them this route, there'll be more earning power potentially than with some academic degrees. So I think, when you put all those things together, why would this not be the priority for the country? And it is our priority.
Hi, Rebecca Cooney for FE Week. I was just wondering, what's going to be the difference between these new technical degrees and the higher apprenticeships that are already available at the moment?
Well, look, here's the interesting thing. There is a very, very limited number of, I think they're called degree apprenticeships or degree level apprenticeships at the moment in some places, but they kind of vary in their nature in terms of, are they foundation degrees? Are they equivalent to BAs? Exactly the nature of those degrees. What I think we're saying is, look, we need a new and clear class of degrees an equivalent BA standard, which we mobilise business and universities behind, and which government says is its priority. And I just really want to emphasise this point. Why has this not happened? Partly it's not happened, not because businesses haven't thought might be a good idea, or some universities aren't enthusiastic about it, because they are, but government's never said, look, this is our priority for expansion. You know, in all of the talk about expansion, I've been in favour of what we did in government in terms of getting to around 50% of young people going to university. It's never been the big priority. So I think the difference is that we're saying this is a priority, this is a type of degree to a particular standard, and we're going to mobilise business, universities and government behind it.
Hi, David Matthews from Times Higher Education. Could I just follow up on this gentleman's question here about when you say it's priority for expansion? What exactly do you mean by that? Are you going to set aside a certain number of university places for these new technical degrees? Are you going to say you can recruit unlimited numbers of people onto technical degrees and freeze standard academic qualifications?
Good question. Look, today we're setting out the principle, and as part of our zero-based review, we're obviously looking at the issue of university expansion, what scope there is for university expansion, how it's going to be affordable, how it's consistent with all the other things we want to do. You know, that's what the great job that Liam Byrne is doing. So today, we'll have more to say about this between now and the general election, but today we're setting out the principle that this is the priority for the next Labour government, this is the priority for expansion. There'll be more to follow in the future about the precise, what we think is doable within the system.
Thank you. David Harborne from the Edge Foundation. I very much welcome the emphasis on the technical pathways, but I can't help feeling that some of this is going to be just as valuable to the remembered 50%, many of whom are misled, misguided, and then mislaid on the career pathway because they've been told a degree, any degree, is a passport to prosperity, when in fact we know that technical pathways in future will offer an even better pathway to success.
I think it's a really good point. Look, this is the exciting thing about this is that this offers people choice. You know, this offers businesses, universities, but also young people a choice. I think lots of young people will think this is a good choice and a really exciting choice. I meet lots of young people who are doing apprenticeships, and they often tell me the same story, which is that they weren't particularly encouraged by their school to do an apprenticeship. Because, but it's not that, you know, to be sort of fair to the schools, it's not necessarily the fault of the schools. You know, as a culture, it goes back to my opening remarks. We say there's this academic route to university, but we haven't really sort of plotted a path for people, which is that non-academic, non-university route. So schools are saying, well, many young people say to me, well, my school advised me not to do an apprenticeship, but I didn't want to go to university, so I did it anyway, and I'm really enjoying it, and it's really good for me, and so on. So look, I think it's partly about establishing and setting out this culture. And absolutely, it could be something that 50% of people who go to university already could take up. Yeah.
Darren Evans from the Times Educational Supplement. Much of the expertise around technical and vocational education is in the FE sector. FE colleges, private providers, what sort of role do you expect them to play in this?
Well, look, I think that's something obviously we're going to have to look at and consider. I think this is about degree level courses, and that's the most important thing from our point of view. And we'll obviously look at the question of how it's delivered and exactly where it's delivered. It's about, in the first instance, we've been thinking this about higher education institutions, but we need to. That's one of the things we need to consult on and look at. But this is very much, to be clear about this is about degree level qualifications that we're talking about.
Ian Silvera, International Business Times. The UK is undergoing a skills shortage, and this programme seems to address it in the long term. But I wondered how you're going to address it in the short term if you come into power in 10 months' time.
Well, look, I think it's a really important question. I think it's very, very urgent that we address this. And, I think in a way you say it's about the long term. Yes, these are about big reforms. But I think there are things that we could be doing straight away to get better qualifications for our young people, improve the vocational qualifications for our young people, work with employers to make sure that the training is available for our young people. I think there's huge amounts that we could be doing. That's why this is such an urgent priority. And I believe this is absolutely within our grasp to make quick progress on this by, for example, having a gold standard vocational qualification. You are going to start to give employers the qualified people they need. By giving employers more control over the money that's spent on training, you can start to address those skill shortages in the absolute short term. One of the proposals that we unveiled last week was as part of Lord Adonis's report on devolution, which was all about how do we give greater control to local enterprise partnerships, for example, as part of combined authorities at local authority level, over the kinds of courses and the kinds of subjects and the kind of teaching there is locally to meet their needs. So I think by, for example, devolving money down and giving greater control to business, because business is desperate for greater control over some of the money that's spent on training, we can start to address those issues.
Tessa Stone from Brightside. I just want to go back to the cultural issue, because while I understand the emphasis on logistics this morning, it strikes me that actually is the biggest problem.
Agreed.
And make a small suggestion that your message this morning is incredibly positive about the need for parity of esteem.
Yeah.
However, you have used the phrase for those for whom academic route doesn't work. And it's more a suggestion, really. I think unless we get that narrative right, and unless we start to pick up on the previous point, thinking about choice and pathways, and not framing it in terms of something for whom it doesn't work, we're not going to change the culture. And without that, all the logistics in the world will not get the sort of parity of esteem I think we all agree we're looking for.
Look, I think that's a good point. I was trying to talk about a conventional academic route, but I think the question about the remembered 50%, which is a good phrase, and your point are right. I think there was a conversation earlier on about bridges and, did you say bridges and? Bridges and ladders. Bridges and ladders. Well, somebody else said to me it was a climbing frame. The climbing frame is the right metaphor, that people kind of move across from one area to another. So look, whatever the way of describing it, I think you're completely right. And look, just on this cultural point more broadly, I think that this is clearly quite deep, and I think it clearly requires action at every level. So it requires schools to be more open to businesses and to businesses inspiring young people. As somebody was saying to me at the Ashada Cabinet actually the other week, look, partly you want young people to be inspired about the potential of maths and science because they see what kind of job it could give them in the future. And so I think it requires action there. It requires the proper logistics, as you put it, in place. But if you don't have the proper standard, the proper qualifications in place, you're never going to achieve this. And it requires championing by government. And I'm determined that we champion this. And by the way, it also requires a culture where we celebrate great manufacturing, businesses that are making things, selling things, to say this is like, this is one of the great things you can do in our country. So I think it requires action at all those levels. Right? I think we're done.